Hello, this is Greg Esser, and this week the DC Breeze take on the Rochester Dragons, and I have the great pleasure of broadcasting that game. You'll hear my voice in the background of today's video, but that should come as no surprise. This is actually after the fact that I'm going to record a little voiceover, a little play-by-play, and then I've also got the great pleasure of working with Sandy Jorgensen today of DC's elite women's team, DC Scandal. Or Washington Scandal. I don't know, Sandy. Which does it go?
DC Scandal.
DC Scandal it is. And so while Sandy and I do a little bit of talking in the background about some of her experiences at the women's elite level, also some of her experiences playing under the same head coach as the DC Breeze, Alex Dutchy Gesquier, we'll also do a little play-by-play. And this whole thing should wrap up in a tidy little minute 10. The game's already off to a start, as you can see here, and no surprise, the same two highlight makers from last week or 2 weeks ago against the Toronto Rush, Alex Thorne and Tyler DiGirolamo, connect for that first point and very, very quickly put the DC Breeze up 1-0. And the reason that I really quickly commented on that tidy little package that we've got here today, that hour-long or 10-minute long game, is we've already done a ton of editing to this film, and really you're just going to see all the action and then none of the downtime. So we should have a pretty exciting game here today, and get it done in a pretty tight little short window. So you can see the Breeze with the disc here, but before we start talking too much about the game, let's talk a little bit to Sandy, who is really great that she's able to step in and play with us a little, or talk to us here today. So the first thing I want to talk about is this game. It's being played at the University of Maryland. It's the first game that the DC Breeze have ever played in the state of Maryland. It's also the DC Breeze's first ever college ultimate night. So we've got a lot of fans in the stands from colleges and a lot of fresh blood on the DC Breezes here, a lot of really young new college players. A big performer from last week that you'll see, or actually I guess this is both of their first week out. They might have had college sectionals 2 weeks ago. So their first week on the field, we've got both Chris Kocher and also Mark Lynn, two big college ultimate players that are now playing for the Breeze. I want to talk to you a little bit, Sandy. You've also, of course, made that tradition from a top women's college program to now a top club program. Can you talk a little bit about what that transition is like?
Well, for women's at least, it means a lot more precise throws and a lot bigger throws, but also very significantly better defense. And so it's a big transition when every single person you're playing against is phenomenal at defense instead of a couple of good matchups a game. So I played college for 1 year before joining Scandal, the club team.
Ooh, wow, I'm going to interrupt you just there, Sandy, because the Rochester Dragons actually dropped a pool. That's something you don't see a lot in the high-level college game or the elite game, I would think.
That is absolutely true.
That's a rough start here. We've already seen, and there's the third Breeze goal of the game. It's Aaron Roberts with the score, and that'll take the Breeze up 3-1 pretty quickly here. But there's no room for that level of error, I would say, at this elite level. And I think that's what you're saying too, is when every player is strong defensively or has the right throws, those little things really start to count.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case.
So did you play, when you were in college, did you play as much both sides of the disc? Or, I mean, now I think you're known for your defensive prowess. So was that the same as in college, or did you start playing more just defensive minded? Did you take a more niche role by the time you started playing Elite Club?
I started in my niche role in college and continued it in club simply because I never have had fantastic throws, and I've been obviously working on them the last 5 years, but even college level my throws were not fantastic, and so I've loved playing defense, and I've loved playing a cutter, unlike many people who do both are able to do both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I may kind of editorialize a little bit what you're saying, I think that also, you said, everyone has these higher level skills. I think there is less room for niche players at the elite level. Every player is more well-rounded. You said you've been working on your throws for the last 5 years. That seems, almost a prerequisite of really starting to play at these professional levels like the DC Breeze here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, none of these players can get away with just being fast runners or good defenders. at this level, you need to be able to take care of it when you've got the disc.
And there, I think we just saw the fourth score for the DC Breeze this game. It was a pass from Justin Solis to Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan, a big performer last week in the game against Toronto, and he's already off with a goal here tonight. And wow, another quick turn. The DC Breeze defense forces that turn, and they're threatening right on the end zone line. But again, we're kind of seeing that patience. Here's Whitehat with the disc. Last week, this was also true. The Breeze kind of took their chances when they could, but they weren't afraid to dump and swing and find the space and wait for the score. And there's AJ Jakowski with his first strike of the night as he scores that goal. So then the other big thing that I'd really like to talk to you about today, Sandy, is your experience playing and working with the coach of the DC Breeze, because before that he was a revolver player, and after that, still before the time on the DC Breeze, he was the coach of Scandal.
Yeah.
And you guys won the national championship last year, so I also probably should congratulate you for that.
Thanks, Greg.
So maybe start by just kind of maybe characterizing how does he work? Is he a behind the scenes guy? Is he a guy that brings together kind of a big social group to discuss the way you want to play, and does he kind of have his own ideas about how he wants the team to play, or is that really something that he engages the team to kind of strategize and determine?
I think there are a lot of things different about Dutchie than other coaches and captain-led teams that I've been on in the past. He's got a very strong leadership style, which is great for getting everyone underneath him to unify and to buy into the strategy. But along with that, and this, I think even more importantly, he has a lot of experience with a lot of different types of players, and so he has plays for any type of team, and he's willing to change those based on his personnel.
So what you're saying is there's a big book of Dutchie, and he looks at the talent that he has, or he consults the talent that he has, and based on that he kind of pulls out ideas, concepts, plays that he thinks will work for that specific group.
Exactly.
Okay. And so do you think is that a process that he is doing in his own head, or is that a process that you've been very much involved in and kind of selecting those plays or knowing what works? Wow, big over the top hammer there, and a quick score. That was Logan Ryan who brought in the hammer and got the assist. DC Breeze off to a quick start here. This is not looking too great for the Rochester Dragons. Yesterday, so this is the Sunday game, Sunday the 27th of April. The previous day, the 26th, Rochester just played up in New York, and they got it pretty well handed to them in New York. I don't know what the score differential was, but it was in the teens somewhere. So it's not. Then they look to be kind of starting off in that same sluggish pace today. The DC Breeze defense is clicking, and Rochester can't reel that in either. Although big layout. Really one where he is a collective thinker or a quantitative thinker, taking in all the ideas of the team, or is he, do it independently, or is it some combination thereof?
I think it's always a little combination, but a lot of it does go on behind the scenes. He and the captains discussed a lot, I know, last year, and we're starting again this year. But he takes feedback from the team, but I think a lot of it he either comes up with or has or works with the captains to develop outside the full team.
Okay, so then, so given that the nature of the interaction, he's working with the team, that sort of thing, thinking on his own. How would you say that manifests itself for Scandal particularly? What can you characterize the type of offense and the type of defense that Scandal plays?
Yeah, I think it depends or varies a lot based on which line we're playing. The D-line, for example, plays a lot of fast break offense. We do a lot of pucking, a lot of quick movement for big plays. Whereas our O-line, we have a different type of player on the O-line, and so he's really good at noting that, or using those people to do small throws and working it up the field and taking waiting for the really perfect throw. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I was just observing there on the Breeze that we saw a lot last week, that maybe I'd ask for your 2 cents on too here, is so the Breeze playing a lot of defense with, two guys on the mark, kind of like a cup. Of course, in the pro game, you're able to bring in that second man without having a double team called on you. Sometimes even that wing comes in and gets almost like a three-person cup, the way that the Breeze are playing a lot of defense. Is that something you've seen Dutchy employ a lot? How prone are you guys to the more zone defensive approach?
We definitely do a mix. We have a couple zones that we actually use a lot when there's wind. And I think that's something we've actually discussed a little bit more coming into this season. The Dutchy knows a lot of different zones.
Turnover there. Looks like could be a penalty though. Some contact from the defense. And yeah, the Rochester will resume possession of the disc here. Sorry to interrupt.
No. And so putting into place a different zone for different type of strategies is something Dutchy's been really helpful with on Scandal. And it looks like it's definitely something that's important to implement with this bigger field for the AUDL.
Yeah, interesting. It's also interesting here you see that some of the defenders that are back is Matt Ruddy, a.k.a. Skunk, is marking a handler here, and so is Frankie Hazara. Interesting that Frankie Hazara, a guy who's 6'5" or so, is on that kind of squirrely backfield handler and Gabe Haig of the Rochester Dragons. I don't know. How do you personally feel about that? And then you're probably one of the taller girls out on the field. Do you feel that's how is your defense used by Dutchy? Are you often on a handle or are you a downfield cutter mark?
I am a downfield cutter mark, and I think that has something to do with my height, and I think Frankie especially is really intimidating, so that might be a useful thing to have him downfield a deep. But at the same time, it's most important to put your defenders where they feel most comfortable, and some tall people are great at just shutting down the throws because their wingspan is so long. So that could be really where Frankie can shine.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. That the wingspan can be used to shut down the throws once they do it. Maybe they're able to get possession of the disc easier, but then their throws are more neutralized. I think a little bit of a replay action there from that last play was a great layout by Mark Lynn, and then we saw Chris Kocher get free out the back and then score that point. Really an uncontested cut that he is able to go behind the stack, and then a great Huck puts it over the stack and he just gets the score. So we got Rochester on O here, and they're falling behind quick. I think the score might be 7-3 right now, 7-4. So the Breeze getting off to a hot start, and Dragons looking a little bit fatigued maybe after their second day of their road trip and after the beating they took in New York yesterday. Here they are all the Dragons again, and this is kind of the same thing we saw a little bit last week. The Breeze are able to kind of contain those handlers in the backfield with the 2 or the 3-man zone, and really the only thing that's opening up downfield for the opponents is those wings. Anything up over the middle that gets hit down pretty quick, but a lot of times they're able to find some creative throws to either side of the field, and that's really the only thing that's opening up space. But those tend to be some more dangerous throws. There we have a good capture of the scoreboard, and it's 9-4. The Breeze are up by 5 here most of the way through the first quarter. Coming off such a positive previous season for Scandal, I guess the next thing I'd ask you about is, how is your energy in this off season? You just won it all. And how do you stay motivated to keep performing this year and to get ready for another season?
I think a lot of us needed a little break to start getting excited again. But I think at this point we're all really excited for Worlds in particular, and then to go for the repeat at Nationals next year. And so that's a huge motivator. Some of our team went down to Columbia last weekend. And played some Colombian teams.
Let me interrupt you here because I think we just saw a pretty interesting and rare penalty, and that's the offsides penalty. Whereas in the club game, that's just a repool and maybe I guess it's just a yardage penalty after several after not even on the first offsides penalty, but on the very first offsides penalty here in the pro game, the opponents get to take a brick mark, get to walk it all the way up to half field. And so the Dragons got great field position out of that offside by the Breeze, and they were able to pretty quickly score. So now it is 9-5, still in favor of the Breeze, of course. And now the Breeze O-line will take over. So you've got some folks that are still going down to Columbia and playing. You've got some folks that just needed some time off this offseason. Are you saying, so do you think maybe the gears are starting to click in, though? You're starting to get ready now that the weather's warmer here in D.C.?
Yeah, absolutely. And those Colombian games, I think, were a real big kick for some of us. Playing against an international team.
Oh, Tyler DiGirolamo throws it away, intends for his current and former teammate Alex Thorne. Those guys have played together a lot. He cannot find him, and now the Rochester Dragons will take over on offense. I do that. I interrupt.
No.
Okay, so the weather's better, and you're starting to click a little bit, and then so I think one of the interesting things you mentioned. Oh, and that's really unfortunate. It looks like contact on the mark there, and even though Rochester put up the throw and Mark Lynn got a spectacular layout D, it's going to get called back, and Rochester will maintain possession. One of the interesting things I pulled out from you there, though, Sandy, is you mentioned Scandal and going to Worlds. I think there are two interesting things about that. First of all, I'd like to know a little bit about, so you guys are already playing in season, and the second thing, and I don't know, I'll maybe put you on the spot here, I don't know if you really know off the top of your head about this, but I know Scandal's been trying to do like a lot of fundraisers and stuff for going to Worlds too. Do you know a website or anything folks could go to and maybe support the team a little bit as they head to Worlds?
At this point, I don't think we have anything like that really set up. We're trying to do some smaller scale fundraising. As we get closer, I'm sure there'll be some more panic, and we'll see where that takes us.
Okay, so there you go. You can stay on either WAFC, which is Washington Area Frisbee Club's email lists, or whatever else, but I'm sure we'll see some notices about buying some sweet Scandal swag that we can wear out in the town to help support the team to go to Italy.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of that.
So what we're watching now is it looks like an O-line for the Breeze, and here's Sam Trackman with the disc. He looks upfield, he finds Ty with an undercut. He's being forced under after those early scores he was able to do upfield so well. Got Justin Solis with the disc, who finds Josh Norris. Josh Norris looks outside and finds Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan in the backfield again to Josh Norris. Josh Norris to Trackman, and Trackman to Ty for the score. And it's an interesting combination the Breeze are displaying today. It's patience when seemingly needed, but there's been some long ones too, and they're both seemingly to work in this early game. I think that's up to maybe double digits already. So so then to finish the Worlds conversation, when is it?
It is the first and second week of first week of August in Lecco, Italy.
Okay. And what are the other American teams that are going?
For women, we've got Scandal, Fury, Riot, and Showdown.
And that looks like the end of the first quarter. And there was an attempted puck there at the last minute to see if the Rochester could get one more before the end of the first quarter, but they're going to go into this quick little 2-minute break that we are able to quickly skip through. And they're still down by 5 or 6 here. So which one of those? So when you look at the playing field for Worlds, is there a particular team you are planning for the most, or most? I don't know. Which matchup are you most concerned about? Is it an American team? Is it the unknowns of the international field? What at least for you personally, are you most preparing for?
I think there's going to be a lot of active preparation for playing the Japanese team, simply because they play so differently than from most of the American teams. Really precise, quick passes that I think Fury maybe emulates them more closely than many of the other American teams, but it's something we're just not used to seeing, and so it'll be interesting to try out some stuff to work on against them.
Looks like the Breeze have called a timeout here. And another interesting thing about, I guess we're going to get a replay too. So this is Rochester with a big deep put. And the D there by, I think that was Aaron Roberts, head over heels. So Alex Thorne back with the disc. He's got a double team on him. He finds to the sideline right away in Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan now facing the double team and a bump on the... I think that's contact. Should give him 10 yards. I think he lost 10 yards. Maybe it was a pick somewhere. Yeah, maybe a pick somewhere. But it will make no difference as Logan's going to put it way upfield and Ty brings it down head and shoulders above his defender. A quick score to Justin Solis. But I think there's a call on this one too. I don't think they liked DiGirolamo's big air there. We're going to get to see a replay of it. Yeah, he came over the shoulder a little bit. I don't know. What do you think? You think that one's got it? You play through that one, or do you think it's a penalty?
I don't see how there was much way that the other team could have gotten that, but...
So, incidental contact.
Yeah.
I don't know if that exists in the pro leagues. But yeah, this game that seemed to have quite a bit of separation is suddenly bump and grind. There's a third penalty in a row, and it is contact by Logan Ryan on the defender. And it'll give him 10 yards. More contact. 4 in a row. So has Scandal had any full team practices yet this year?
We haven't yet. We started actually on Sunday right before this Breeze game. We had our combine with all the women's teams in DC. So got all the women out in the area and did some drills, did some scrimmaging, and we'll start our tryout and regular practices next weekend.
Big break find there. Scores for Rochester. But I think after all that work, they just... Oh no, Breeze did start with possession. That was a break. So hard work pays off for Rochester there after all the bump and grind. So this combine thing, this is kind of a new construct, I feel like, in the club scene. I think it's being done for the first time this year up in New York. For a while, it's been going on in some of the Texas clubs. I think Seattle does it as well, kind of bring out everyone in the club scene for one tryout, so you don't need to jump to 3 different trials or try for 3 different teams. You're trying out for kind of all of it at once. How long has the women's scene in DC done the combine system? Is this the first or second time this has happened?
This is our third year, actually.
Third year it's happened.
Yeah, we modeled it off of Seattle's combines, actually, and it's been great to get momentum and publicity for the women's scene and for all 3 women's teams.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that also kind of helps the on-field relationship between all those players, that everyone's kind of so familiar with each other?
Yeah, I really think it does. Some off-field, the preparation for the combine gets all the teams working together with people you don't end up seeing that much otherwise, and then just knowing people throughout the season.
Ooh, it looks like that was Ty DiGirolamo in the backfield got point blocked on the high release flick. And Rochester here with another chance to break, actually, maybe start getting back into this game a little bit. So the Breeze took the early lead. Yeah, I think it's a cool development for the club scene. I mean, certainly as a guy who's made the rounds in the club scene and had to try out for 2 or 3 teams at once, you can feel awfully worn down at the end of a couple back-to-back tryouts. Ty will make up for his point block, and DiGirolamo scores the point, and what a punt spike that was. So I know you were also at this game, Sandy. Have you spotted yourself in the stands yet?
I haven't. Okay. I'm in the middle in the crowded area. I swear I'm there.
It was cool, this game. It was the DC Breeze's first ever college ultimate night. and as such, in the fans were quite loud. I think you can probably vouch for that.
Yeah, we sat next to the Towson section and they blew the roof out.
And so some reps from Towson, from George Mason, George Washington, and then of course our lovely host for the evening and the rest of the DC Breezes games, University of Maryland. A push pass to score after a big downfield huck, and Rochester gonna stick in this thing. So talk a little bit about, we had talked about your transition from college to club. We had talked about your work with Dutchie, but kind of the synthesis of those two things are, talk about the transition, as many of these guys I think probably are making for the first time this year, of going from uncoached ultimate to coached ultimate.
Well, there are definitely different levels, so to speak, of coached ultimate. Before Dutchie, we had 2 different coaches, and I think for the most part, both of their philosophies was for a more captain-led, team-led strategy. And Dutchie, I think, was the first to take a real coach-led strategy for the team, and so it's really different having instructions and so on come from on high, but it's also kind of nice to have a single voice, knowing that there's a lot of experience behind it, telling us what to do and what he thinks is the right idea.
Yeah. So we saw a little bit of a miscommunication there on the previous possession by the Breeze. Disc close in the back of the end zone, and 2 Breeze offense that are in great position to capitalize kind of on, looks like a defensive snafu, as well as a great put, unable to bring it in. And now Rochester are taking over here with a chance to score. You got to see Gabe Haig with the disc. He's going to go over the top. The Breeze offense here transitioned to a very man-to-man. And some great D as Chris Kocher stays with this guy and going to start off with the disc here. He doesn't just block the disc, he catches it, which is the common heckle you'll hear is to catch your Ds, of course. So we've got White Hat in the backfield. He slightly overthrows. Oh, and Kocher can't be the hero that time. A little high, and he can't reel it in. So Rochester again, their second chance to score on the point, and they'll make it happen pretty quick. The Breeze can't fall back into the defensive format. White Hat's none too happy as he'll kick that disc around. And here we get to see the replay. Kocher not quite high enough. Second chance. Oh, and it was close. Almost brought it in. So, would you say then that to achieve those higher levels of ultimate which you have played at, that unified voice, as you kind of said, the coach comes in and now you finally have this central authority figure that's able to say one thing, it eliminates the doublespeak. Do you think that's a necessary feature of the most competitive levels of ultimate, or simply maybe serendipitous that it occurred simultaneous with the scandal, getting more and more competitive here every year and eventually taking the national championship?
I think it can certainly help. I don't think it's necessary at all. I think it depends a lot on the team, a lot on the personnel, a lot on the prior strategies, and what kind of things have been working on so far or previously. In our case, it really made a difference. Having us all behind the one strategy.
Big throw by Rochester, finds number 5. He's right on the end zone line, threatening. Early in that first quarter, it seemed like the Breeze were really content to play a lot of the zone, and now we're increasingly, there are kind of 2 guys on the mark there, but earlier at this point we didn't really see a lot of the double team. But what we did just see, as soon as they got that double team on, is Rochester showed too much patience and actually got stalled out there. So the Breeze are going to get a shot here.
Is the stall a normal 10 seconds?
No, so the stall is 7 seconds, and I guess I've seen kind of some studies and that sort of thing that because it is referee controlled, the 7 seconds is pretty similar to the duration of time it takes in club for a typical player to count to 10. From my experience playing in the pro leagues, it seems awfully similar, that 7 seconds advertised versus the 10 seconds as stalled by a player. But it is, at least nominally, less time. So Rochester grinds out the point, and now the Breeze will start on offense. They've still got a 2-point lead here, but not looking nearly as overpowering and dominant as they did in that first quarter. And now I think this is the first time we've seen Rochester pull out the zone. And they've got 3 or 4 guys even covering the disc, really packing up the backfield. And they're breaking out of the zone, though. It's like a 2 or 3 throw zone, and they'll break out of it. Solis with the disc. Finds Shramko. Shramko looking up line. And he'll find his man. Bouncing out of bounds there. That's number 42, Ryan Nam, with the score. And the Breeze made that one look easy. They're doing both in tandem this game. They're up by 4 at this point. Making it look easy and difficult at varying points. As we all can do. So then, one thing that I noticed too is last year, of course.
Wow, that's a great D.
That was a great D. That was
Aaron Roberts.
You maybe can take over my job. That's exactly what happened. That was great. Good layout. The Breeze D line threatening. There's White Hat with the disc. Oh, but he throws it away up line to double coverage, and Rochester will have a chance starting on their own goal line. And another big D. This one is by Brad Scott. This is his first game he's active. He was not active against Toronto the other week, but he's playing tonight. And it looks like there was a little discussion about maybe a strict call or maybe a foul on the Brad Scott D there. And it looks like Rochester will get the disc back. So he got a little bit too much of his man. Maybe his man a little bit too much of the disc. Either way. Close to the ground, but Rochester will continue. Again, we're seeing more. It's kind of poachy at times, poachy in the backfield, but definitely a man-to-man defense here. So what I was going to ask you about before is you had seen a Breeze game last year, and then you were at this game, and now you're watching this game with me here. Do you think there's a difference in the intensity of play, or do you think it's pretty similar? I know the Breeze made a lot of big acquisitions in the offseason.
I think it's definitely different. It's probably a little bit more intense, a little more athletic, but I'm not sure it's all that much cleaner.
There have been quite a few miscommunications and throwaways, and I think, to tell you the truth, I think that'll be one of the challenges the Breeze have to deal with this year. They've got a lot of different, many of the professional teams kind of make their claim around bringing in a lot of guys from the same club team, guys that have played together a lot before. Wow. Number 7 on Rochester gives a little punt kick after he has a nice little break side sky. But whereas a lot of club teams kind of make their business on bringing in, a lot of the pro teams make their business on bringing in club team guys from the same team. The Breeze have not done that this year, right? They've got a lot of different moving pieces, and I think their challenge throughout the season will be to make all those pieces work together, eliminate those miscommunication mistakes that can occur by guys that are used to slightly different strategies or slightly different sets and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason that there's been a lot of Barnes DiGirolamo throws.
Yeah, those two guys have played with each other for quite a bit. So the Breeze on this near sideline, it's Solis with the disc, and he finds Trackman wide open in the end zone. Whatever switching Rochester was doing there, forgot about someone. So there's a minute 11 left in the half here, and the Breeze are still up by 4. You can see all those hands raised to the face. I remember this portion of the game, and that sun glare was starting to be pretty bright. Funny that people still have their hats turned around backwards. So, and a look around the league a little bit. This is the Breezes' hunt for their first win of the year. Rochester, I had mentioned, had lost to New York the previous day for this game, but they actually had beaten Philadelphia in Week 1, so they're a 1-1 team. So if the Breeze are able to hold on to their current lead and maybe even build on it throughout the course of the game, they're already showing that they should be the better in 2 matchups next week that will occur against the Philadelphia Phoenix. A little bit too far out of the reach there for Rochester, and that's going to give the disc to the Breeze. It's Russell Howard with the disc getting bumped a little bit by the two-man cup. This is quickly becoming, I think, the go-to move in the AUDL is the two-man mark. Even in the center of the field, the sideline, doesn't make a difference. They're going to put 2 guys on that disc. They're going to take advantage of that double team. A timeout's there called by the Breeze with 20 seconds on the clock. They're going to see if they can capitalize with just a little bit of time left in the half. There's Fang with the disc. We'll look to Norris. Norris will go outside. One more time. They're swinging the disc around, and now they're out of time. It's a big over-the-top hammer that cannot find a receiver. And we'll go into half. Breeze up 15-11. Certainly in charge of this game, still in a comfortable position. But considering they were up by 6 at the end of the first quarter, maybe Rochester has figured some of this out. So this was an interesting thing I noticed at the game, is you see how the referee there stopped kind of that rolling out-of-bounds pool that Rochester put up there. The Rochester coach was not happy about that. And I don't really know how the rules are worded about that particular aspect of the game. In club, you'll kind of game the system to roll the disc out of bounds. And in semi-pro, that disc, I think there's actually supposed to be a second disc there to put immediately back into play. So you're not gaining the advantage of, if you can't throw the full distance of the field, you're not gaining the full advantage of being able to throw the roller out of bounds. I thought that was kind of interesting, but the coach was not happy. There's DiGirolamo, I think his 4th score of the game, and the Breeze are going to take the first one out of half. And here's a D line for the Breeze. White hat with the big pool. Not employing the rolling strategy that Rochester is using so heavily, and with little help or avail. So are there any, maybe this is too preemptive to say, so I'll ask it in 2 ways so you can give me an answer. I was going to say, are there any kind of new players to the area, new players that Scandal might have this year that you're super excited about playing with? And then if it's too early to say who's going to really make this team yet, maybe a couple of the returners you're really excited to continue to play with.
I think it's a little too early to say what the team will look like this year. We're, like I said, we haven't really had our first invite tryout.
Great D by White Hat, and that's going to give the Breeze a shot.
But we're excited to see a lot of returners.
Any returners? Any returners particularly?
Well, we've got a few like Allison Maddox and Jenny Faye who we're hoping will return, or they'll play with us just for Worlds. And Alicia White would be great. She'll have to miss Worlds, but she'll be back with us for Nationals. And obviously having Opie, Octavia Payne, and then I can only think of D-line players.
Well, that makes sense. Those are the folks you share the field with the most. Wow, really sloppy play from both teams on this point, and that's the 3rd turnover, and that will allow Rochester to score, despite the D-line having every opportunity after that big white hat D in the beginning. So in week 1, we really saw a D-line that thrived off of putting the disc really deep, and it was largely Brett Matsuka that was doing a lot of the throwing for the DC Breeze D-line. He's not here this week, And the person that has stepped into that kind of apex handler role in a lot of these points is Matt Roddy, a.k.a. Skunk. And he's working really well with White Hat. Those are guys that have been teammates before, all the way back to college, and then they played on the Breeze together last year. So I'm seeing a lot of chemistry there. They're not willing to put the disc as deep, but there's a lot of give and go in the backfield. And at least for a while on that previous point, it seemed to be working out pretty well. Here's the O-line. It's Solis with the disc. He'll dump to Norris. And Norris finds break side right away, Tyler DiGirolamo. He's getting more and more creative with his spikes as game goes on.
It must be frustrating to have to come up with so many new ones.
So another interesting thing about this particular field for the DC Breeze that I noticed is a lot of these players are wearing turf shoes, turf spikes, because of the nature of the field that they are playing on. And this could be the makings of a home field advantage a la the Toronto Blue Jays that play on a turf field where the rest of the league plays on grass, natural grass. Have you ever played any tournaments that required a change of footwear? I mean, certainly I know you've played some of the competitive indoor stuff that's been happening on the East Coast. I don't know. How do you feel about having to change up your footing?
Well, I don't own a pair of turf cleats, and so in a situation like this, I'd be forced to go with tennis shoes at this point, which is pretty frustrating. We played one game at US Open last year on a field similar to this, really hard, really short AstroTurf, and a few people were losing the cleats off of their shoes, and it was just...
Oh, the actual physical plastic cleat would break off?
The cleat was falling off.
Oh, wow.
I had some major blisters after that. It was really painful. So hopefully everyone's got appropriate footwear here.
Yeah. I would think at this level everyone's got the appropriate footwear, but it's still, especially for the road team, actually, that's the real home field advantage, right? If the Breeze are used to playing on it and Rochester comes to down and ends up with a blister by halftime because they're breaking in a new pair of shoes. So the Breeze offensive possession quickly derailed there. Rochester with a chance to break. But Solis says, nuh-uh, he'll get the D. And we'll get to see Breeze with a second chance on offense here as Norris hustles over to the disc and gets double-teamed on the sideline. It won't matter. A floaty throw over the middle to an unmarked Trackman. Trackman looks upfield, finds Norris again. And Norris will go outside. Big under by Anderson. And Anderson, again, showing last week he did, and he shows it again, a willingness to really go for the long ball. And DiGirolamo.
Taco spike.
Yeah, that disc is not coming back. He's lighting it up early and often, though. So, I think this also applies to Scandal too. I had mentioned, a lot of the local college players playing for the Breeze this year. That's certainly the way Scandal sources some of their players. We mentioned Alex and Ty. The out-of-town guys. There also are a couple of big out-of-town names that came down to DC last year to play. The name escapes me, but it was a woman from Philadelphia, I believe.
Yeah, we had Christy Lowry from Philadelphia. All of Pennsylvania.
All of Pennsylvania is just one.
Thing to me.
I'm from Pennsylvania. I'll take some offense to that, but I'll let you slide this time.
Thanks. We also had Kimberly Beach, who came from, I think, Harrisburg, Anne Mercier from Ottawa, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So she was, I think, our most distant. We had one or two from Charlottesville and Atlanta area,
So I know the Breeze, how they combated some of these out-of-town geographies is, I know the day before they had this game, they had an all-team practice, so the whole team can get together on a game weekend and play before the season started. John Pressimone last weekend was telling me there's a score, and it's Mark Lynn with an easy one, very unmarked. It's like he accelerated away from his defender pretty well. But yeah, John Pressimone was telling me they had these two a day kind of weekend sessions to really integrate the out-of-town guys. How does Scandal integrate those out-of-town players? Do they similarly hold practices where, if you're a couple hundred miles away, you're still expected to be there, or is it, simply conversations before game day? How do you integrate geographies?
Well, to the extent possible, we expect everyone to be at every practice. Obviously, it's harder when it's a flight every time. So we have 2 practices a weekend, 3 or 4 hours each, to try to squeeze as much in as we can with every minute we have with these players. And then sometimes we kind of use earlier season tournaments as practice. We know we can get people to come to those, so get a lot of touches within them.
Great, that makes sense. It certainly paid off last year. So there's Rochester, and they'll convert an O-line, and celebrations are getting decidedly more interesting as this game goes on. So here is the Breeze offensive line. And we got Norris with the disc, and Rochester is returning to that 3-man cup they were going with earlier. Breeze showing some comfortability and going over top, the inverted throws. There's another creative throw to Norris in the middle. He'll continue to swing to the near sideline. Or I assume someone caught it over there. Looks rather challenging camera angle here. And another little bit of an assumption is some contact on the mark there for Shramko. Gets 10 yards out of it. He'll find Norris can't bring it in on the near sideline, and Rochester will get a chance to break.
It's looked to me like Rochester has used the double team a lot more often and maybe more effectively than Breeze. Is that just a misperception?
No, I think you might be onto something. I mean, and it was funny too because I feel like early in the game we saw the more aggressive double teaming by the Breeze, and that's when they went up 10-4. As they've fallen out of that set and Rochester has moved into it, this game has tightened up a little bit. So that's a pretty interesting observation.
Tyler finds Josh Norris for a score.
And Norris gonna play both sides of the field. He's gonna be a handler, and he's gonna cut down and score one. I would say that routinely the Breeze are getting better field position out of these hucks. I had mentioned before that Rochester's putting kind of some of those out of bound up, and here's a return to the double team though. Some of those out of bound hucks or pools rather that are sitting on the sideline, only getting 2/3 of the way down the field. Whitehat is routinely putting it into the opponent's end zone, and as long as the Breeze can hustle down there, they're getting great field position out of it. Oh, and a little bit of Butterfingers, and Mark Lynn sticks with the disc and gets a second attempt D on it. Looks like Koch are going to join the handler set now in that apex position, as well as Russell Howd. And they show a little bit of chemistry on the sideline. Looks like a stall. Whitehat's cut. Couldn't find separation, and the Breeze gets stalled out. Rochester with the turn here. And yeah, great grab. Let's get any lower. He runs into some defenders, but he catches it right on the goal line. And they're keeping this a ball game, as much as we don't use a ball. So the Breeze still up by 5. Pretty comfortable lead here. Playing in front of that home crowd, which we can hear intermittently in the background, all those college kids out at the game. It'll be interesting, the news out of the AUDL, I'm not sure if you've heard, is that 1 game a week is being picked up by ESPN3, so you can watch it streamed on the internet. It'll be not till later in the season that the Breeze makes 2 appearances on ESPN. I think one is the second to the last week of June. That's against Montreal. I want to guess it's the 23rd. And then the second time they're on ESPN, I am rather sure, will be against New York, a home game on July 5th. So an interesting opportunity to not only be able to watch some of the games after the fact, as I'll do a little bit of play-by-play, this sort of thing, but also a couple live ones as well. Finds the open guy, and Rochester will score. I think that's a break. So now let's see if the Breeze can kind of hold their own. They're only up by 4. Still seeming like. But that sun glare going to be less of a problem as this game moves into the 7 o'clock hour here. So maybe I'll ask your opinion on this one. I mean, I think the Breeze have shown, and maybe this kind of goes back to the very beginning. Wow, big layout. Can't find the disc though. That's tough because it gives a wide open throw to Peterson, who finds Wu on the sideline. Big under. There's Anderson. Anderson to Trackman outside. To Ryan Nam with the disc. So what I was going to ask your opinion on is, so I mean, we're seeing, as you kind of said, the more routine use of the double team in the zone by Rochester, but maybe more variability out of the DC team. And you had mentioned that Dutchy's a guy that has a big playbook, and he's always selecting certain pages out of it. What do you see as the value between kind of switching up the looks, and are you an advocate personally of sticking with something that works, or trying to change up a look enough that it makes a team keep responding and not really get settled in one way or the other?
I would say switching it up, especially at these higher levels where if you give a team a chance to get to know something, they'll work around it pretty quickly. I think that can be really important to have the different types of looks.
So even if something's working, you would be a fan to be able to switch away from it a little bit?
I guess keep trying it for at least a few points, but it's not a problem to stick in 1 or 2 different Ds every once in a while, even if one is working.
That's fair. So you saw Skunk get a big D right there. He went right downfield, but White Hat with a holster. And now the Breeze defense here gonna try to make this work. Here's White Hat again to Roberts. Roberts to Skunk. Skunk looks outside, finds Press. And Press, the overthrow there, can't find Brad Scott.
Turnover, Rochester takes over on offense.
And here's Rochester's turn. Press on the mark. Rochester finds a big under and kicks it right back out, and they'll throw up a huck. And a pretty easy run onto there, and they'll find the score. So have you been able to ever attend any of the AUDL games in other cities at this point?
I haven't. I think I've attended just a few of the Breeze and
some of the crosstown rivals.
Yeah.
The current.
Yeah, a few of the current. I actually saw one game in San Francisco last year with the Dogfish playing another area team.
Okay. I see you were very alert during that game.
Yes. It's a lot more fun to watch these teams where you know some of the players.
Sure. Yeah, so maybe that's a question. I mean, you played for the Worlds team. That's really, I think, your only dabbling, at least to my knowledge, or maybe just some leagues around DC. But that's your biggest dabbling with co-ed Ultimate. Have you played with any of the current players on the Breeze?
I think I've played with a few of them at various pickup and ultimate events. Trying to think who I might have. But yeah, no, I probably only know.
Yeah, you run in the truck stop circle a little bit, so maybe either Russell Howd or.
I played actually on the indoor nationals team with Russell Howd.
Okay.
And
there's Ben Fang with the score. He's also a former truck stop guy, although I think he has spent time back and forth in Philly between Philly and DC the last couple years. So I don't know if you've seen him as much. The other guy that still hasn't made his debut for the Breeze this year, I think, because he's got maybe even a broken finger, certainly a finger sprain, but maybe a broken finger, is Jonathan Neely. Is he a guy that you played with before? Is he going to be a difference maker when he comes back?
Yeah, he's a squirrely handler with some great throws. I played with on a beach team.
I like how squirrely is like as a compliment, only an ultimate, right?
Oh, especially when you're a cutter defender and squirrely offense is the worst. So he was formidable.
The squirreliest. So yeah, the Breeze can be excited to get him back in the mix this year. And Rochester sticks it in for a score. This is going to put out a Breeze O-line. Trackman receives the pool and gives it to Josh Norris. Norris goes upside down, back to Trackman, back to Norris. Inverted again. Here's Trackman with good field position. Girolamo looks outside to Nam, and Nam throws it away there. Nam might have been his second or third throwaway of the game. Not having a great one here today. So here's Rochester's chance to break. Solis on the mark. So Rochester's doing a really good job. I feel like they get the big under, and then they've got fast handlers that are coming right up the line and getting that disc right back. And a lot of times they're turning that into, oh, there's an injury, not good. It's Logan Ryan on the ground holding his shoulder. Yeah, I don't know if he hit it on the man. I think he just hit it on the ground. But yeah, he's gonna exit the field. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Another thing, I think there was a play earlier, I'm not sure if we caught it all on camera, but actually the person that's been missing from a lot of this game, who was on the active roster, is Alex Thorne. He played about a quarter and a half of the game and then went down, also clutching his shoulder. And so I don't know if he's out entirely because of the injury, or the Breeze think there's enough breathing room here to kind of give him a little bit of a breather. But his presence also missing. So they're missing a couple of their handlers this game. Maybe that's why I commented on Kotra being a new addition to the handler set, playing that center handler a little bit. Maybe that's not always by design, but a flexibility needed from Thorne sitting out a little bit. Well, there is the score, and they're up by 5. The Breeze are, and another big spike. So Breeze D-line enters the playing field, and we can see White Hat again queued up to pull. So what I was saying there before, took me a little bit to remember my train of thought, is I feel like Rochester is making really effective use of maybe can't threaten deep right away. A lot of these guys don't necessarily have the size on some of the Breeze downfield cutters, but they're finding an under, and they're kicking it really quickly back to a speedy handler, and that's actually affording them then the opportunity to send someone deep kind of from the power position, and making kind of the most out of maybe a not ideal situation, since their cutters right off the bat are not able to beat Breeze defenders to anywhere on the field. They're being forced a lot under. Wow, there's a big layout though. And Rochester's going to make the offensive point work. They're still down by 4, but at least they held serve there. So that'll send out a Breeze offensive line. So we talked about Worlds already. I mean, is that the first tournament for the Scandal season? You mentioned some returners come back for that tournament. What's the first kind of domestic tournament that really gets? I think I said Breeze there. What's the first domestic tournament that gets Scandal off to the races this year?
We've got a tournament in Winston. Well, I don't know if it's in Winston anymore. In North Carolina.
Okay.
Is our first big tournament, but our first really big one, I guess, is 4th of July weekend to the U.S. Open in Minneapolis.
Okay.
So we're kind of gearing up for that. Winston Cup is more of a precursor, get everything ready, make sure we've got our plays down.
Shramko finds the end zone on that one.
Josh Norris to Liam.
And it was really an easy choice there. They had 2 wide open defenders there between teammates, not defenders, but Solis and Shramko both in the corner of the end zone. So you gonna pack out a van and head out to Minneapolis, or are you gonna fly out?
I'm pretty sure we'll be flying out. It's about a 17-hour drive from DC.
Wow.
So not so much fun.
It's a turnover. Looks like an injury time.
More injuries. And that's not a great injury. That's Mark Lynn, who I mentioned is a current player for University of Maryland. He's got regionals next weekend, so I certainly hope to see him back in this game, although he went out holding his hamstring there. This college team will need him in three short days.
It's got to be a crazy season for the college players who also do club, who also do semi-pro.
Yeah,
I cannot imagine.
That's for sure. Ben Fang takes a look, and he finds Pressimone. So you're originally, I mean, maybe this is an East Coast perspective, from somewhere around the Minneapolis area. You're from Minneapolis, yeah, and you went to school in Wisconsin. Is that right?
Yeah, from the suburb of St. Paul.
Okay. So do you have hometown fans that are going to come out to the U.S. Open then?
Just my parents.
Okay.
I never played Frisbee in Minnesota, so I don't really know the scene out there very much.
Got it. Well, the guy on the Breeze that's from that area is Liam Shramko, so maybe, and I think actually Liam Shramko is, his girlfriend certainly lives back there right now, and he's splitting time a little bit, so maybe you'll get some fans out of them if you can manage your relationships just right. So here's a Breeze offensive point. It's Norris back to play that apex handler role, and he's again showing the willingness to throw the inverted stuff. There's Trackman with the disc reeling in another one of the inverts. Here's DiGirolamo. The second the double team gets put on him, he'll throw another one. That's 3 hammers in a row. The Breeze, it's a beautiful night, and the Breeze not showing any hesitation to throw the most creative throws they can think of. And Anderson will do the same, and his intended target is Wu, who scores. The D-line out. So we are now in the 4th quarter. There's about 6 minutes to play. The Breeze are up by 6. It's 26-20. And here is a Rochester point. They're in their own end zone here, trying to figure out a way out. Lots of short passes in the backfield. Find one up line. The short stuff working here again. And right out of the power position, it's a huck. And it finds number 4 right on the goal line. Oh! And a miss, it looks like maybe a little bit of opportunity there by Jacoski, but he can't get up enough to stop the hammer, and Rochester will bring it within 5 by scoring with their O-line. If Rochester wants a chance at this, though, they've got to figure out the D game, though, because its time is running out, and they've shown a limited ability to stop the Breeze's offense here. DiGirolamo showing willingness to also puck out of the backfield, and it will eventually result in a score by Ryan Nahm. That's his third of the night. And it's partially, I mean, this is, I think, an interesting thing to talk about, too, is it's partially whether or not you're able to stop the offensive line, but it's also how long it takes them to score. And, I mean, that point, the Breeze might have had to make 3 or 4 throws. You know, it's just, you know, I mean, you got to be able to delay the offense as well as stop it.
That is one aspect of the timed game that's hard to get used to. There's no way to come back from, well, very limited way to come back from that points down a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. Breeze gets the offensive possession. They're trying to ice it, really, put some, or maybe not ice it in terms of time, but put icing on the cake, a different type of icing. And throw it away. It's Gabe Haig that picks up the disc, and he takes his turn throwing it away, but it looks like some contact will bring the disc back. It's Brad Scott on the mark. And here's Kocher on the mark now. They are forcing them to have a lot of throws in the backfield. They've got to score, I mean, on the reverse side of the equation. I mean, if Rochester is taking these 20 to 30 throws to score, not only are they less likely to do it, it's taking more time. A little bit of contact there. I don't think you're going to get away with that. I think that's going to come back. And Rochester will resume possession. And a pick called. It was interesting tonight, so as I said before, I played in some of the pro games and I've seen many at this point in time. And I think we saw 2 or 3 different picks called tonight, which is a rarity. I mean, it means the referees are getting better, which is nice to see. Because that's one of the things that frustrates me as a defender, I don't know, is seeing and having picks occur and not having them called.
Yeah, I do know that the ref training has been a little bit more serious this year.
Yeah, actually, I guess one of the referees for this game is one of your teammates.
Yeah, Sam McClellan is one of the refs, and I know not only she is an Ultimate player, but there are several other high-level Ultimate players reffing, which makes a big difference.
Yeah. The Breeze now with a chance. Here's Solis on the near sideline. Finds Norris up line. Little strike cut. And Norris showing no hesitation going to DiGirolamo, who finds, I think that's Anderson. Two minutes to play. And that was a funky transition. I'm not 100% sure how that camera worked. But the Breeze with possession here. And some bumping and grinding is going to typically give that 10-yard penalty to the defense, or to the offense, rather. But in this case, they're already at the end zone, so they don't get a free score out of it. They get to center the disc for free. And we saw that a couple times in this game as well. And that was DiGirolamo, I believe, who got the score. He's just lighting it up tonight. I'll be interested to see, even though the Breeze have only played 2 games so far, he might already be on top of that scored points leaderboard this year for the AUDL. They post those things pretty frequently on Facebook. You can check them out. So dire straits here for Rochester, but they're still looking pretty chilly. I don't think it's time to be chilly anymore, guys. You got to push if this is going to tighten up. A lot of backfield play. And a turn, and a quick point by the Breeze. So then after having attended a couple of these, this was one of the first night games I was involved in for the AUDL. Would you say as a spectator you enjoy the day game more or the night game?
I think playing under the lights, or watching a team play under the lights is always a lot of fun. But one aspect of the day game that's nice is the temperature stays the same.
Yeah. This game, the temperature changed a lot.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun to have the atmosphere of the evening and the light.
Oh, and a point block by Fang. White Hat picks it up. They'll find Nam, who finds Shramko. Shramko goes up line. And that's Nam who's going to score.
23 seconds to a future
Breeze up to 30. Dragons sitting at 21. There's only 47 seconds left to play. This is looking all but over. So the Breeze, as I said earlier in the game, but I'll mention it one more time, are going to have 2 games this upcoming weekend. One is on May 3rd. It is in Philadelphia, against Philadelphia, of course. The other one is on May 4th. And both those teams then head back for a home game for the Breeze. That'll be at the same field at the University of Maryland. And it should be another good one to watch, and another, same location. So you know where to find us. Rochester will score. They'll bring it within 8, and there's 23 seconds on the clock. I don't know, Sandy, are there any last wise words you'd like to impart to us today? Thanks so much for sitting in and watching this game with me and commentating.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for having me. No wise words here, though.
No wise words. Well, I'll remind everyone again, as they can see announcements either on Facebook or Twitter about Scandal fundraising, that Sandy's team is going to Worlds in Italy, and I'm sure any financial help or buying their sweet, sweet merch would be a big help for them as they plan their trip. So here are the final throws of the game. The Breeze marching it up the field. They've been able to do this pretty routinely all game, and as the time expires, another creative inverted throw. There's your final score. The Breeze with 30, the Dragons with 22. I will be back next week. Sandy will not, so wave her goodbye from your computer screen, and thanks again all for tuning in.